take two.
Right?
For those
Hey,
who are
at least
curious.
it started closer to right on time. Like we were gonna be like 3 minutes
We're very
early.
good. We're 2 minutes behind. Listen, we actually started, and then I realized I had not hit the go live button. But we had done a whole countdown and even like caught up. Anyway, but hi.
Hi again.
welcome to the show. If you are
Right.
joining us, please say hello in the chat. We would love to say hi to you back, and we hope you're doing
Right.
great.
So I'm Amber Hollowell, and this is TransParents. This is our Maiden Voyage. My lovely partner over here, Jenny.
Hey, I'm Jenny. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm happy to be here.
Yay! And we are both moms of trans kids, trans sons, both of us. Mine is the oldest, and so they're both adults, and we figured a good way to have a conversation here would be to talk about those things, those experiences that we've had. There's a lot of conversation going on right now in the country, in the world, honestly, about trans rights, about transgender people. And they are normal. They are just like everybody else. And there's a lot of rhetoric going on that's trying to other them. And we figured by coming on here and having normal conversations that you guys could come in and get that experience too, and realize that a lot of that is just rhetoric. It's not the truth. Come in and get a little educated.
Yeah. Come learn.
Hello, Paul. Hello, Byron. Nice to see you both.
Byron.
And both from Florida.
Oh, well, hello.
Right?
Hello to the Sunshine State. Y'all have some oranges and stuff, and you also have Ron DeSantis, and we're very sorry to hear that.
Right.
But that's okay. Hopefully, the whole country doesn't have him soon. Although it could be better than the alternative. I'm just so sure. Anyway, off the political.
Right.
Along the lines of what Amber was saying, I think it's important to. I think one of the biggest obstacles for people, and I speak from my own experience, is they don't know a trans person. So all that they're getting, the only information, the only input, the only resource they have is whatever is being, pumped into them. And we're getting that from social media. We're getting it from the news. We're getting it from, people that we know. We hear little flippant comments that strangers make. We see the drama unfold on, on different media. And they don't know a freaking trans person. And I know that my experience has been that I have family who had already made their feelings about trans people known a couple of years before my son came out. And when he did, it was obviously a scary experience dealing with them and not knowing what to do. But what I found is that my family has really come to, they may not all go, oh yeah, like being transgender, I get it. It makes sense to me and I support it, but they are not saying the things they used to say, and they're not doing the things that they used to do. And that makes the world safer for trans people. That alone. I can't always change hearts and minds, but I can definitely, we all have the ability to influence behavior in other people. And, that just doesn't take place in our lives anymore. And that spreads out. Hopefully if they encounter a trans or non-binary person out in public, they're behaving a little differently than they might have before, just because of exposure.
I mean, that was my mother. My mother was not good when she found out. Like when my parents found out, my stepfather was really receptive. He's a teacher. And so for him, it was very easy to just go, okay, what does he want to be called? What pronouns?
Yeah.
Very easy. And my mother was immediately no. And it took a good year for her to come around. And a year after that, she is now like at the dental hygienist. Oh, my daughter is talking about trans rights, and she's a trans advocate, and my grandson's, transgender, and my job is to love him. And I don't really care what anybody else has to say about it. And that is not what my mother would have been before.
Right.
My mother has helped friends who had children and grandchildren who were non-binary and transgender that they were very prejudiced against, because my mother kind of started to share about her grandchild. Right. This friend is now receptive to those 3 family members. So it's just that little ripple effect of, like you said, you don't necessarily know someone. And so you've got this prejudgment already there that you've made about those people. You've already put them aside and said, no, they're not included. And I think when you take that off and you really get to know a person, it's the same thing as getting to know anybody else. And that scariness, that unawareness that you had before, very easy to remove. And I see Andrew Paul popped in. He's a third.
Hey!
So we've got all Florida right now.
Welcome to the conversation, Florida. I'm in Oklahoma, so I'm doing much better off.
And my daughter's in Florida. I heard from her today. So she's complaining it is very hot. And her father and the other roommate are just like, they're kind of used to it. And my kid is like, this is the kid that like wants to have like 60 degrees in the house.
Yeah.
She wanted it cold. And so I don't necessarily know what she thought. And she's like, it's so hot here. And I'm like, it's December. What are you going to do in July?
Yeah.
But anyway.
Hey, Andrew. Welcome, our favorite T-Rex. Hi, Michael.
Michael! Yes, Andy here. Yay! Little T-Rex. And he's in DC and Michael's in Pennsylvania. So we're all East Coast.
Okay.
Now. We got the full East Coast.
Coast represented. Where are my central people?
Right? And West Coast. Where are they at? The humidity will get the humidity will that's what she doesn't like is the humidity. It's not that bad. Paul, it's not that bad for you. My kid is like a super hot, like she's hot natured. This is the kid who wanted to live in Siberia. And I'm not joking. She wanted to live in Siberia or Russia. She wanted it cold.
Oh, goodness.
Cold.
Can't relate.
Yeah, and she went to Miami. And I was just like, I love you, but that was just a lie. Extra room if she can handle Sid. Yeah, he's got a handful of his own with 3. So my mother and I, we were talking about it, and I got to talking to her about how, because I work from home right now, my situation is I don't have to necessarily worry about the conversations and things like, does the insurance company for the company I work for, are they going to cover my son's medications, or give providers that he can seek? And you work for an employer. Well, we'll just talk about how you work for an employer and what you would like to be able to do.
I work for an employer. I think it's always a little scary going into a new situation and wondering, especially because I have a TikTok that's trans loving mama, and all of my content generally is just about loving and supporting trans people. I have other stuff on there, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty vocal. I'm not as vocal on my Facebook now. I do have to market on Facebook with my job, unfortunately, and which I hate. I hate Facebook, but I'll get on there and do it. And I do try to have, trans positive messages. And there's always that fear of like, are people going to see that and then decide I don't fit with their culture? And it's real easy to say things like, well, maybe they don't fit your culture and you shouldn't be there anyway. Mama has a fucking house payment. So, I mean, I hate to be a sellout, but at some point you have to accept, especially in conservative places like Oklahoma, that this is just what I'm dealing with. And the job market is not such that I get to be picky about how other people feel about certain topics. So I start there. And I mean, the first day, it's our very first staff meeting. We're sitting there and I just overhear the two other salespeople that I work with talking about why they've boycotted Bud Light. And I knew it wasn't because they had shafted Dylan, right? I knew it was because they had involved Dylan in the first place. And it really bothered me, and it sets this tone, it's the first day. And so it immediately kind of set this tone of like, I'm not safe to talk about this here. I'm not safe. And not that I'm going to come to work and be like, hey, how's everybody doing? By the way, my son is trans. Would you like to know all about it? I don't do that. But I'm not safe to, if something happens with him, if there's a medical thing going on, if, I can only have certain pictures of my family up because in younger pictures, he looks like a girl. So
Right.
you start to know where you can tiptoe around people and what that's going to look like. And it sucks. It really sucks. I watched someone talk about, and it was one of the Schitt's Creek cast members recently, and I watched a little TikTok or whatever that they had said what we aimed to do was portray it as, what if we just live in a place where there is no homophobia, where they didn't talk about LGBTQ issues as this challenge to overcome or all these struggles that are involved with that. It was just there, and nobody had anything to really say about it. And that's what we're talking, like, that's what we're talking about. That's the world that we're trying to create, not a world where you don't have a feeling about something, or you don't have opinions, or you don't have deeply held beliefs, but a world in which you go, there's no reason for me to be unkind to people. I'm just going to accept people as who they are. I can still have my beliefs. If you don't want to wear a dress, don't wear a dress. If you don't want to take testosterone, don't take testosterone. No one is making you, but just to accept, understand, and I don't even like the word acceptance, or I like it better than tolerate, because tolerate is just like, listen, I tolerate my cat. Okay. I like him, but I don't like him. I don't want him. If there was anything else I could do with this cat besides something that would be unkind to animals, I would do it. But I tolerate him and I feed him every day, and but that's not like how I would treat, I don't know. I feel bad. Why would I treat my cat different than I would treat a person? I'm sorry. I've just had a moment. I feel like I owe my cat an amends. Sorry.
You would. I'm allergic. And my mother's cat knows this. I swear the cat knows it. And will intentionally come over to rub all over me and bite me so I can have the rest of the day. And he does it on purpose. There's never like a nice cuddle, hi Amber. No, it's a like bite. I'm like, you're mean. You're mean.
Yeah.
He's always mean to me. So yeah, like I won't. Maybe you owe the amends, maybe not. You thought it. You didn't do it. You just thought it. You just
bad energy to put into the world where you're like not like
and
about a cat.
Nancy's like cat love. Yes, Nancy's a huge cat lover. And she's in the comments, cat love.
I love cats. It's this cat in particular that I find really challenging spiritually. He is my spiritual sandpaper. I'm not at my best when I think about this cat. I'll try to get
back. That's my mother's. That's my mother's too. And okay, so we'll go. We segued, sorry. But while we're there, Nancy, thank you for coming in. Cooper, thank you for coming in. Nice to see you guys. And yeah, like Nancy said, tolerate is awful. Tolerate is awful. And I think sometimes what a lot of people don't think about is that you as a parent, because you're working in a company that's like that, you don't feel like you're able to express yourself about your kid the way you want to. You're having to tolerate everybody else's behavior.
Yeah.
Which isn't a good behavior. I mean, go in there what the guys were doing about the Bud Light. It's intolerance.
Yeah.
So you're having to tolerate that while at the same time you can't freely speak about your kid. And I guess part of what this conversation piece here is about is so that I want Jenny to be able to go to work and talk about her kid. I want her to be able to put whatever picture she wanted up on her desk and not have to worry about anybody in her workplace coming to her and giving her slack.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we want as parents. We don't want to have to worry about if we go, if I wanted to go visit my daughter right now in Florida and I pack my boys up in the car.
Right.
I can't take my oldest.
Nope.
Well, I can, but I should not take my oldest child to Florida.
I'm with you. Yeah.
And so those are things that we now have to consider. My ex. So my kid moved this week. On Monday, my youngest child, my daughter, moved to Florida. And my ex is in the driveway. They've got the U-Haul packed and he's driving. They went down to Miami. And he's talking to my sons about when are y'all coming down to visit. And they both just kind of look at him like, No. And it took him a minute to click and go, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it was like you didn't like
Yeah.
that is a conversation that as parents, that is something that you and we're at that level. But there are
Yeah.
some parents that are still navigating that journey that they're not thinking about all these different
Right.
things that you would have to think. And so he's not thinking as a parent who is really not been involved in his children's lives for about the last decade, not like every day, every
Yeah.
week, anything like that. So to come back in and pick up one of the kids and drive down there, he's not thinking about the fact that his oldest can't go see him because he lives in a state that will arrest him pretty much if he stops at a rest stop.
Yep. I think about the parents too with younger kids that, aren't adults, that maybe haven't started any kind of, medical or otherwise transition. They've done social transitioning, pronouns, name changes,
Right.
Changes in maybe their appearance. The experience of regular things, like, for example, a couple years back, when my son had just come out, he sprained his ankle on the trampoline. He bounced on the trampoline with his shoes on the trampoline. Who does that? He did. So we go to the emergency room and we're sitting, as we're pulling up, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to present a medical insurance card that has this name on it. It doesn't matter so much with like that, because I mean, call anybody what you want to call them, right? But I'm trying to honor my kid. And so I looked over at him, I said, how do you want me to handle this? We're in Oklahoma. Do you want to walk in here and tell them you have a preferred name, and that you have a chosen name, and that you have, pronouns that are probably different than they're expecting? Like, how do you want me to proceed? Because I'll do anything you want. And he was like, I'm in pain. I don't want to mess with any of this. Just let him call me by my dead name. Cool. We get in there to his x-ray, and I don't know why he does it, but he lays back like this on the x-ray table to like get his, ankle x-rayed. And the nurse looks over and says, your daughter doesn't shave her armpits? And I was like, first of all, not worry about what anyone does with their body hair. Don't worry about it. It might be a cisgender woman who just is kind of crunchy and natural and doesn't want to shave under her arms.
Right.
You don't know if it just doesn't matter. What a thing to point out. But okay, it caught us both by surprise. So we kind of looked at each other, and it's like a light bulb went off. You saw it in her face. She was like, oh my God, are you transing? And we were like, what is going to happen next? That's the other thing that people don't realize. You don't know what the next part of that conversation is. Just because someone says something a certain way, or even smile, I had no idea what was coming. I don't know if the next thing out of her mouth is going to be, how could you? I have no idea what she's going to say. So you're just kind of trying to stay one step ahead of situations and conversations, when really you should just be able to be free. You should just be able to speak openly about whatever. Thankfully, that went really fine. Jesse was like, yeah, I am transing. And here's my name and pronouns. And the lady was really sweet. And she was like, my so-and sister, or I don't know, somebody, has a child that's blah, blah, blah. And, it was great. And then later, the nurse, it was a male nurse who came to help Jesse get fitted for like his boot and crutches, came in, and he had a pronoun pin and a, like a heart, a rainbow heart. And Jesse was like, cool pins, dude. And I ended up reaching out to the hospital and just saying, that x-ray tech handled this beautifully. That nurse was incredible. We really appreciate that. But we do hope that you will provide more training on inclusion and training on these kind of things, because I can see where the x-ray tech's words could have been maybe triggering, harmful, or otherwise uncomfortable for someone else. We handle it fine. I don't know how the next person's going to handle it. I don't know if the next person has a supportive family, or, it's really understanding that we don't even need to ask. You don't really even need to ask in passing someone's pronouns. If you are not going to get to know that person, you don't need to know. Who cares? Don't worry about it. Hey, buddy. Hey, friend. Hey, you. good to see you again. As you know, if you're at a restaurant and somebody introduces herself as Christy, and you're like, well, I think Christy looks like a trans woman. Okay, just call Christy Christy, order your freaking chips and salsa, and move on. Like, don't worry about it, because to
Right.
you, this passing moment. It's this moment that later on you're gonna be like, I met a trans person. They were my waitress. To that person, the little thing that you say that you might even think is cute, or you might think is, you don't know what that Christy is letting that build. And it's comment after comment every single day of her life. And she's on TikTok and seeing about this. And she's on everywhere Christy goes. Christy is very aware that people
Right.
know. And why? It's a passing moment to you. It is building on Christy's self-identity, self-esteem, ability to just feel comfortable in the world. We don't need to do that to people. There's no reason to do that to people. And I think for a lot of these people, that's the point, is to make them so uncomfortable that they're closeted again. What you're going to end up with is dead Christies. You're going to, how does anybody live successfully in a world that doesn't want them?
Right.
I mean, the day comes when you're like, there's no reason for me to be here. And we do not want that. Not for our kids, not for your kids, not for anyone's kids. I don't care if your kid is 50. I don't want that for any human being.
Right. Right. I mean, and that is, and we know adults are feeling this way. And if adults are feeling that way, and our kids are adults now, but that means that there are kids out there who are feeling this, who are weighing that. And again, like you said, everything is against them, from what's on television to social media, possibly even at their schools. If there's certain laws have been passed so that their teachers can't be inclusive, their teachers have to report them here too. The teachers have to report them to home, and teachers used to be that roadblock for children who were being abused or neglected. Like, as soon as they picked that up in the classroom, they were the ones that reported to the counselor, who reported to social services. And now we're told that those same teachers who used to be like these shields for these kids,
this place
now
of safety,
turn them into parents who might still be abusive. Like, and we're causing more harms than ever are necessary.
Yeah.
When it's, like you said, it's just about acceptance and inclusion. And we're also talking about 1%.
Right.
We're talking about 1%. 1%, less than 1% identify as trans or as transgender in every single state in our country, which means less than 1%. And we've seen the number of bills. I don't have to tell anybody here. I know you've turned on your TV and your state has tried to pass some, because every state has tried to pass some this year. It's the most bills for any topic in the history of our politics, guys. And to do all that in 1 year is only to highlight the fact I will be fired. Yay, and that's where you're at, though. That is, when we talk about people who have to. I had friends who worked in the VA department in Florida, and they worked in the complaints department. And do you know what the majority of complaints are?
That sounds like a horrible job.
They're the LGBT community. And she was like, and she left. She could not take it anymore. She left. She went back to Massachusetts. She was like, I will not go back to Florida. But now, because DeSantis he's pushing this do this thing on Don't Say Gay in the workplace.
Yeah.
The people in the VA department that choose to work with, they are packing up and leaving in droves. So what happens to those soldiers now, and who do they complain to, and who helps them? Because we know that DeSantis isn't done. And that's going across our country, guys, on a level.
I mean, you're talking about human beings who've stepped up to serve. Listen, I'm here to tell you right now, not me, not it, no way, no how. I have lots of feelings about our country. I have lots of feelings about our military. I have lots of opinions about people who carry guns in just about any facility.
Right.
Let me tell you what. The people of our country who've stood up to serve have done something and shown something that I don't think I have in me. and they have endured, and they have put their lives on hold, and they have, they have done a service for our country, whether our country was doing the right thing when they were doing it or not. Those people stepped up to serve, and to leave anyone out of the benefits and the dignity that they deserve for that service is just unacceptable.
Right. And I think, and you were talking about the healthcare piece, about when Jesse went in. And that is something. So, for anybody who's new watching, I went to nursing school and 2 different BSN programs. And I dropped out of one after a year within my clinicals because my father had gotten diagnosed with cancer. And then I went back and pretty much had to start all over again. So I did about 3.5 years of clinicals and nursing school total. And I left with 1 semester to go. But I can tell you that what's in our textbooks, what is taught by our instructors, what is taught on the floor. I went to 2 colleges. One was a private, one was a public. The private school was actually the first Bible college of our state. And they had a class called human sexuality. And that is where I learned about gender. That is where I learned about anything on how to address them, pronouns, autonomy, all of those things. That is the only one. It wasn't incorporated into what do you do with med surg? How do you treat this person within maternity? How do you treat this person in peds? We didn't discuss it in any part of our person acumen, but in human sexuality, in a Bible college, this is where I learned about pronouns. But in my public college, I never had a class that talked about how I treated anyone of a different gender identity. We never talked about it on the floor. So think about that. We're putting nurses and doctors and dentists and x-ray techs and CNAs, we're putting all these people through school, and we're never telling them how to treat a group differently.
Yeah.
That should be respected differently. And if you really want to talk about patient autonomy, then respect is number 1. And if you're not respecting them by their pronouns and respecting them by their name, and I've heard variances of even people locally that we're connected with on LinkedIn had gone into the hospital and had this varied experience. One nurse would come in and be like, I will definitely honor your name and pronouns. No problem. The next one, you're my first patient that's like this, and I'll do my best, but I'm probably going to screw up.
Well, and then your chart says this.
Yep. The next one was like, your chart says this. No. Or I don't believe in this. No. Or then they'd have the person that was like, yes, AP, Liam. Oh, actually, no, it wasn't Liam. Actually, that's not, it's somebody closer to me, much, much closer to me. But they had this experience, and like the next one was something like, until you change your eye. I've been told this one on a live show that I did. And this woman worked within the military. She worked within the healthcare space, and she worked with transitioning soldiers. And she flat out told me that she didn't have to respect their pronouns until after they fully transitioned and it was changed in their medical record. And that's false. That's false on a basic rights, healthcare rights, respect in a hospital. And I just kind of looked at her on the show like, so not only in healthcare are you doing this to patients, but you're doing this to soldiers?
It is such a weird flex to go into your space and then publicly just say, I suck. To show up in your space, which is about being loving towards other people, to show up and be like, I'll tell you what, I just came here to announce that I'm actually a horrible human being. I just don't give a shit about people. I'm the most important person in the room. Like,
I was just kind of like, have you not heard any reports to the Pentagon, like Biden, like the whole changes that they've done with the military, and you do respect them, and that they're going by the psychologist, and the psychologist says, honor it. From the second they need it, honor it. And what? That
was a good idea.
But see, that's the same thing. But the reason why, they say part of the holdup with putting all those military people in place in Congress, that the holdup on that was because of the abortion right access for the military aid, right? It's not. It goes deeper than that. It goes to the transgender rights, because this year, right before Tommy Tuberville started going, nope, 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 nope. Right before that, Biden and Austin had just put in place that if you want to transition in the military, it would now be covered.
Why shouldn't it be? Why shouldn't it be?
But
You
that literally went
your
that went into
country.
policy 1 month before, and then suddenly they were like, no, 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 we won't do all that.
Yeah.
And everybody out here needs to pay attention to what they're doing and when they're doing it. And right now they're trying to stack everything on trans rights. And that's what we go back to. 1%.
Right. Can you imagine
the damn 1%?
Right. Can you imagine just waking up every day and maybe, whoever's listening and whatever your sitch is, there's one thing about you. Pick something. I'm going to say it's my green eyes. And all of a sudden, everywhere is an attack on green-eyed people. And it's in the news here, and we're not trustworthy, and we're groomers, and we're going to hurt people, and we're mentally ill. This concept of gender, we invented this, right? Back whenever humans evolved from the primordial ooze and turned into whatever you believe. I don't care if you believe it from the minute that people were created in a garden, or if you have a sorry, and our scientific minded that humans have evolved. All of that, the parts were there. Like, I was born with this.
Right.
Those parts have always been there. But this idea that these parts made you this, and then all these attributes went along with that. Not crying, not being tough, being able to fight, providing for your all these, being the leader. Then you throw religion into it, and religion says we have just given full reign to people born with penises. Like, they are chosen, they are ordained by God to rule, to lead, to everything. We came up with that. Like, that is something that we developed. So we can undevelop that. We can decide that things have changed. And the truth is, they haven't changed. Trans people have always existed. There's so much great historical data now. But we can decide that we don't have to worry about this. We can decide that that's okay for somebody to do. We're allowed to do that. Like, we run the place, y'all.
Right? I think it gets so wrapped up into, again, this agenda of people want to, like, it's not quite shadow puppets, but it's like, hey, look, trans people over here. Oh, by the way, you don't have voting rights anymore. Hey, trans people over here. Right. Oh, you don't have women's reproductive rights anymore. Right. Oh, trans people over here. Oh, we're gonna crap the economy.
Yeah.
They're distracting. And
you
right now,
so busy focusing on this 1% of the population that honestly are just trying to
miss all the rest of it.
Their dang lives. Just that.
Right?
I know.
And what bothers me, I think what bothers me anymore are the politicians that do it to their own children.
Oh, yeah.
Like, those are the ones that I'm just kind of like, you're willing to sell your kid up the river.
Absolutely.
You don't care about their mental health, because, I mean, at the end of the day, that's honestly what we're here talking about. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about the mental health impact of an entire community, children included, that if you don't accept them, if you constantly other them, they are the ones that right now, when I do another show, is I'll run over some facts. So for the youth, they are the highest population of homeless. They are the highest with substance abuse disorders. They are the highest with mental health disorders. They are the highest that have thought about unaliving themselves, and they're the highest that have unalived themselves. And these are the kids.
It leaves you thinking that must be the point. That it's got to be the point. It has to. What else is the point? You're being presented with that fact. You're being told that that's the case. You're being told, that you can literally save lives. And if you don't, or you do the opposite, or you keep going down that path of hatred and intolerance and cruelty, the point must be And I mean, some of them have been ballsy enough to say it out loud. One of them said out
Yeah,
loud that needs to be eradicated. And it's disgusting, but at
eradicated,
least it's
yeah.
honest. At least I'm like, okay, that's what we're dealing with. These people are literally trying to kill my children.
Yep. And
Sure.
that is, I mean, well, I mean, that all the children, right? All the
Yeah.
children, all the trans people, like, they don't care. They
Yeah.
want it to go away.
No
And as
way.
long as they will go into how it is evil, it is disturbing that our country's going downhill and we're in the gutter. No, it's not. Christianity is one of 243 religions celebrated in this country alone. You do not get to say what everybody else does on one damn religion because you choose to, because our country is not set up on religion.
Right. And I'm just
Just in case that's a new fact that you're hearing for the first time.
newsflash, breaking
It
news.
is not based on
This is not a theocracy.
right? Difference between separation of church and state. We have 3 branches, and church isn't one of them.
Yeah. But it has been
Even though they want to make it.
It has been so ingrained in us. I think that in my opinion, I've heard other people say that they feel the same way, but in my opinion, so much of people's problem with things like, annihilating this idea of gender roles and the, accepting trans people. I think that it is so rooted in misogyny. This idea that how dare a man try to lower himself to the status of a woman? Why would any man want to look like a woman? Like, that's just offensive to people. And it goes the other way with this idea that, like, how dare a woman try to raise herself to the status of a man, try to pass as a man? And then you've got the turf/farts who will say, well, women becoming men, which, by the way, is not how being transgender works.
All right.
But she is trying to exalt herself to the status of a man, and in so doing, that is bad for women. That is bad for women's rights, bad for feminism. Instead, and it is so deeply rooted in misogyny. It is so deeply rooted in this idea that men are better than women.
It goes back to that. So when you look at the bills that are done for sports, they're not done for trans males.
They're not done for trans men.
And they're done for trans women because how dare a man get in the pool with a woman? Right?
I think it's more than that.
How dare we lose one of our man folk?
Yeah.
You're going to go to women? What? No, you're not. And they don't even, and honestly, they don't attack the trans males because they're like, you're still women.
You're still a woman. Men. So we're not worried about you. Right.
We're not worried about you.
But I think
it is ridiculous.
There are some points that have been brought up about trans women competing in women's sports. They're women too. And it almost sounds feasible. It almost sounds like a good argument. Well, if they've naturally had testosterone, which builds muscle tone, if they've naturally had more muscle tone their whole lives, and they have the stamina associated with testosterone, then they have a competitive advantage, and it makes it unfair towards cisgender women who've never had that hormone. Here's the problem with that argument. There's many problems with that argument. I would love to do a full show on that argument, by the way, please.
Okay, that works.
But a few things wrong with that argument. First of all, trans women who've gone through that process have taken estrogen, which depletes testosterone. In fact, many trans women and you know what? I don't want to say an exact number because I don't know, but by a certain time, call it 6 months, call it a year. I don't know what the damn number is. By a certain time, their testosterone is so low and their estrogen is the same that they have lost any competitive advantage. That muscle tone is gone. You'll talk to a trans woman, he'll tell you, oh my God, my butt is gone. Or wait, no, that's a trans man because that's what my son said. But the body change, and my son he's lost his little belly button. He's got a flat man butt now. Your body changes, your muscle tone changes. Additionally, on top of that, there are these trans women who've won these events. They act like they're just out there absolutely smoking everybody. They're acting like there's just some dude, hairy chested with a big old bulge in his bathing suit, coming out and putting on a wig and going, I'm a swimmer and I'm going to win. That's not happening.
It's not.
It's not
It's
happening. And there's always going to be somebody better than somebody. It's just going to happen. But we're not seeing these sweeping world titles going to trans women.
We're also not seeing like 1,000 enter the pool in a competition. So now it's like there's 100 trans women in the pool and 2 women.
Right.
It's not like that, because that's the argument, is that they're taking all the awards away from regular women.
No, they're not.
Bull.
No, they're
Bull.
not.
And just because they don't meet your definition of a woman doesn't mean that you get to tell someone else what their experience is.
Yeah.
It's like you can't project your religion on somebody else. You can't tell them who their God is. It's all the same thing. But with trans, like what strikes me about the trans athlete argument is the Olympics. Now, the Olympics and like NCAA, a lot of our major sporting events have already set up their requirements for trans athletes to meet. Some of these have been in place for over a decade. So if they've been in place over a decade, A, they're not just coming out. Right. And B, they're the people with the experience and the knowledge to figure out what those requirements would be to make them so that they aren't there. The men or trans women aren't at an advantage over the rest of the crowd. And you're right. Like by the time they're allowed, and a lot of times it is a 2-year, I think it's the Olympics is like a 2-year from either or, like trans women and trans men. Something like from the time they either go on a hormone or they've gone on a blocker, I feel like they have to do it 2 years before they're allowed to be able to compete. And that's so that you get
fine. You know, okay. I don't know.
That's what lowers their levels. That's what's supposed to make them. That is supposed to lower their testosterone for trans women to get into that field, so that they now don't have the testosterone. They're now with other women, and there are some women, guys, who run higher. You have PCOS. You run with more progesterone, which is a female version of testosterone.
Hold the phone,
you already run higher than normal. There are Olympics, there are Olympic athletes who have been banned from sports because their progesterone levels were so high. They said they were using steroids, and they weren't. They had hormonal disorders.
Absolutely.
We've been using hormone treatment. We've been using hormone treatment to treat those for how many years, guys? 50 to 60.
Baby, I have been taking a hormone blocker. I can't even tell you how long. In fact, I recently stopped taking it because now I'm going to go actually get on hormones. I overproduce androgens, which are commonly considered male hormones. So even though I realize that I look pretty feminine, I've always, it's because I have on makeup, I promise. I am kind of androgynous looking, to be honest. My body isn't very curvy. I'm kind of straight. I get little chin hairs. I used to get cystic acne on my face. Anywhere a man grows a beard, you will, if you get acne there, it's hormonal. So I overproduce what are considered male hormones. Am I part male? Whatever. I mean, we've all got these different hormones, and some of them are higher and lower, and they'll get expressed, and you'll see it in physical ways. Everybody has known, let's just keep it real with each other. Everybody has known that lesbian that you thought, like, is she trying to be a guy? And she looks very masculine.
Yep.
Okay. We all just express, everybody has known that woman who has no breasts and no curves.
Right.
And all that stuff is just kind of these combos of our hormones. And at the end of the day, it's not any less of a human being. It's just not any less than a human being. And we have all just fought so hard, and unfortunately we still do it today, for our own gender affirmation. A woman with little tiny flat chest might be like, hey, I want to have breasts. They make me feel more womanly. And we go, okay. And she gets her boob job, and everybody goes, oh my gosh, she looks so good in a bikini now. Like, yes, queen. And let a woman, though, cut them off and say, this doesn't feel right to me. I don't want these here. I want the flat chest that my guy friends have. Like, that's who I know I am. And I mean, the world just wigs out. How dare you not want to be the woman you are? It's just screwy. It's so hard for me to understand.
It's intolerance. It's intolerance.
Just
But
worry
it's
about
like,
yourself.
well,
Worry about
everybody,
yourself.
right? It's like everybody's got to fit in this perfect little box. And if you don't fit in that box, well, the hell with boxes, guys.
And you better be grateful for your box. You better love that box we put you in. You better think it's the
Right?
best thing that ever happened. And you better go out every day trying to exemplify the box that somebody else decided you fit in the day you were born. Because what
Yes.
was between your legs when you were born? Hamburger or hot dogs? Who, of all things. That makes sense. We do that because
It does.
we do like to label things. It's how we understand the world. It's how we interact with the world.
Right.
This is this, this is that. I know what to do with a this, and I know what to do with a that. I don't know what to do with a this. And so,
Right.
it does make us more comfortable. I totally get it, man. I had my son in little pink dresses. Are you kidding? He had a little ladybug room. I did all the gender stuff. Who cares? The point is that when it was his turn to let me know, hey, it just wasn't right. Oh, okay, perhaps. I don't owe some big apology. I didn't, weep over the years I'd spent putting his hair in braids. I didn't worry about it. Oh, okay, I know who you are now. We can move forward with that.
I mean, that was mine. Like mine was like the final puzzle piece. Like, oh, okay, this makes okay. This
It
all
makes so much sense now. Yeah.
so much sense. It's like, okay, that,
That,
check.
yeah.
Like, oh yeah, okay, yep, we got it all. And it was so much easier. And like I asked somebody recently, was like, were you surprised? And I was like, I don't know that I was surprised, but I hadn't guessed it either. Like, I mean, they had said that they were asexual and agender, but trans they hadn't said. But again, my kid had been living the way he wanted forever, buzzing his own hair, like, I mean, all
Yeah.
the things, like
Yeah.
whatever he wanted to do, he did it. Like middle school came out, I'm like, where is your hair? And it's like, oh, it'll grow back. Oh, okay, all right. And you just let them. I just let him. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't going to do me any good. It's kind of like having the tomboy as
Yeah.
a little girl and forcing her in the dresses.
Yeah.
And so very much I was never going to be that mom either. So when he said, this isn't what I want to wear, it was like, okay, fine, don't wear it. Like,
Right.
now I can remember like my grandmother, because my grandmother would buy like dresses every year.
Yeah.
Some years, early on it was dresses. And then actually my grandmother got to a point where she was like, I'm just going to send you money and you buy the kids Christmas presents and then bring them down here Christmas Day so they can open them from me. And I'm like, okay, grandma. And that way they would get what they wanted, whatever it was. And so we stopped the dresses as soon as grandma handed me the money for that. But before that, grandma wanted the dresses. And so there was like 1 or 2 times that we'd gather that grandma would be like, where's the dress? And I was just like, oh, they were hot. Or I'd be like, it was a little too tight, or just, I would make a little white lie to grandma to ease it. Just, yeah, no, we're not. I'm not playing that.
Yesterday. It's in the laundry.
Right. Sorry, it got dirty. So I'm playing in it. But yeah, no.
And we understand that older generations especially have more trouble with that. I understand. I get it. This has got to feel to a lot of people like their entire worldview, their entire understanding of who they are even is being assaulted. And I have a lot of compassion for that. But we all have the opportunity to help people realize this is an attack, even an attack on you. It's not an attack on your values. It's not an attack on the roles that you've decided to play into and the roles that you have established maybe in your family or your marriage. Like, nobody's trying to attack that. We're just saying that some people are different. Some people don't feel that way about themselves. Some people, my son's grandmother on his dad's side said, I just don't want to understand why you wouldn't want to be a girl. Being a girl is wonderful. And he said, it's wonderful for you because you're a girl and you like that. I'm not. And it's not wonderful for me. It's awful.
Right.
And
that's where we're at.
Why can't that be true? Like, why can't that just be true? I know there's a food you don't like. Why would I try to make you agree that food is good? If you don't like it, you just don't like it. It's not right for you. It's not it. Why can't we just let people go? Oh, okay. People experience things differently. I don't know.
I think I hope we'll get there. I know we'll get there. I know we'll get there.
This is going to help people get there. This is good for the world.
Right. Well, I mean, and it is like to see that our kids are normal. We're normal. There's no sexualizing. There's no grooming our kids went into place. No teacher convinced it in their heads. Nobody does that to them. They figure this out on their own. This is both of our kids. It was our kids.
Yeah.
Trust me. Like when mine came out, it was kind of like, is this really the road you want to choose? Because I knew how stacked things were against him. Like, I mean, it's a hard road. This is not, and so that is another piece that I'd say you guys have to kind of think about that. Like, no one is going to choose this as a trend. No one is going to choose this like just nonchalantly and like I got up on Tuesday and said, I want to be a boy. It doesn't work that way. This is something very deep, very eternal. And it has to be for them to come out and say, you know what, I'm going to take on the whole world and be brave enough to say, this is who I am, knowing that the majority of everything is going to be against them.
Yeah. I think that we both talked about how the biggest fear, whenever our kids came out wasn't, are they going to change their mind? Are they sure? Are they this? Are they that? It was other people. What are other people going to do to my kid? I didn't even really care what other people thought of him. I cared specifically about what they might do to him.
Do to him. Yep. Do to him.
And that
for me in the
mind to being violent. I mean, the fear is real.
Well, I mean, we both live in red states. We both live in red states. Yeah. And so we see the rhetoric. We see the rhetoric that goes on with our politicians. We see the rhetoric just at the school board level.
Yeah.
If your school board's like my school board, and actually I know your superintendent is out there. So,
it's been a blast. It's always exciting. Yes, at my child's school, they have to, if kids at my kid's school come out, talk about a different name, a different pronoun, they have to contact the parents. And I know one parent who got contacted and was like, do not ever out my child to anyone, even me, another parent, a family member. Do not call me to talk about this. If my kid tells you to call him Santa Claus and move on. And but it's just sad that even has to take place because, we live in an area that's, it could be dangerous. Kids go home to violence, y'all. Some kids go home to violence. More kids than you want to.
And you're putting them possibly
you're putting them at risk. Why?
I mean, you're lighting the powder keg for some of these kids. I will say that my stepdad's, the way our state did it, the state school board handed it down to the counties for each county to make the decision. And so what my stepdad's county decided to do is if you decide, so first of all, it didn't get implemented till like mid-October. And so because of that, anybody who had already given their pronouns, already did a name change at the beginning of the school year, parents don't have to be contacted.
Right.
And they're already grandfathered in now. So say they were a freshman, as long as they don't change those, they're good for the rest of the year, the rest of their school term, and they won't tell anybody.
Sorry, I have dogs.
Quite all right. But they won't tell anybody. But the thing in October is what they put in place is now they are going to bring the student to the office and to a counselor. And the counselor will be like, okay, we have to call your parents if you want to change this. But if this is unsafe for you and you understand that, and you understand we can't honor the pronouns and the name, but they give the kid an option now so that.
Well, what kind of fucking option is that? What kind of option is that? I mean, how good are your parents potentially put you in harm's way? Or you can just keep being a good little closeted trans person. Go stay in the closet.
It's exactly what that is. Pretty much.
Yep. Stay in the closet or face who knows what.
I mean, but they're under the state, so they kind of.
I know. They got to do it. I get it.
Like you have people like my stepdad though, who will bend the rules as much as he can. And there are a lot of teachers out there who are like that because again, they realize that they are that stopgap. They've always been the stopgap.
That's the first place my son came out was at school. To his teachers, to his peers, before
Right.
he even came out to me. And y'all, when I tell you, I am the safest person to come out to, and he knew that. I had trans friends. I had plenty of, I'm queer. Like, my kids knew this about me. This wasn't, this couldn't have been
Maybe
what
he
I
might. I
thought.
think mine might have told his siblings, maybe before me, but it definitely had not told anybody at school. Still never
Right.
told anybody at school.
But
Like
my
it was
kid
a
wasn't
good
going to tell me. When
year.
I'm telling,
It was a
again,
year before. Yeah,
imagine
mine
how
came out
many
in
kids are
college,
there
so
just with
he didn't even
nobody.
tell his friends.
Yeah.
Well, they don't. Well, so when my son did come out to his friends, and it's called the calc group, the calculus group, and this was the
I
calculus
love
group
it.
from high
I
school,
love it.
and they were all like the smart kids that hung out with one another, and so they kept that chat for like the last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And so when everybody's going off doing their different things at college, everybody's reporting. One of them had a baby, like everybody's
Aw.
reporting back into the
Yeah.
group. And so my son finally one day is like, he waits like a good year. And finally he's like, okay, so I guess I should tell everybody. And we're in the pandemic, so nobody's seen anybody anyway.
Right.
He was like, but I'm trans. And pretty much their answers back were because he had one friend that was, gay, and he was kind of like, yeah, I knew. I
Yeah.
knew. And the rest of them were all like, well, we couldn't figure out if it was that or you were just really butch, but we figured you'd tell us eventually.
Right.
But it was no big deal. It was kind of like, oh, okay, and moved on. And that's because they knew the person that he is,
Yeah.
and that made no difference. And I think that's the key here is that he's a person like everybody else, and it didn't change anything.
Right.
My mother's rejection was her religion. It wasn't
Right.
because she didn't love a grandchild. It was because she was raised with her religion, said that was wrong. And it took my mother a long time to wrestle with that. It took me. And this is way before my son ever came out, but dealing with homophobia, dealing with my transphobia all came back to my religion. My religion told me all of it was evil. And I judged people harshly based on what I'd been taught in the religion. And yeah, I did a lot of that unpacking. So I wouldn't, luckily before my son came out, but I could see where a lot of people, that's why they struggle. And I think once you get down to it, you realize these are just people. These are your grandkids. These are your friends. These are your siblings.
This could be your doctor. This could be it may not be the doctor who's touching your body, but it could be the lab person who's doing your lab work. It could be the nurse. This is just people. We are at an hour, but listen, my favorite thing about this intro episode has been I have so many great ideas for future episodes for us now. Because we're going to touch on all sorts of little points. We're going to talk about we're going to deep dive into more of these points more in the future. And just give people a safe place to come learn and grow and speak. We will continue to get better at this as we go. Please continue to use the chat. Please continue to reach out in any way. If you're like, hey, I heard it come up somewhere the other day. What do y'all think about that? We're not experts. We're not doctors. We're not neuroscientists. We're not, endocrinologists. We're not therapists.
Right? No.
Our goal is, at least my goal is, to just proceed with compassion, understanding that there are what other people consider very good reasons for them feeling strongly oppositional to this. They have reasons that to them are good reasons. And the more we can come together and talk and kind of break down some things, that's the perspective we bring to it. We just want to make the world a safer and better place for everyone.
Right. I think that at the end of the day, that is where we're at. We do. We just want everybody to be able to function normally. I want everybody to be able. I'm a health advocate, so healthcare is like my jam. And so for me, I'm definitely seeing the kickback, the pushback within this community in particular, where their access is being cut, where their access is being interfered with at huge levels, especially with children, and what the harmful outcomes of that's going to be, because our politicians aren't going to suffer, guys. Our kids are.
That's right.
Our kids are. People are suffering. And we're already in a country that has a hard time with mental health as is, right? We don't need to be creating more mental health harms. And a lot of what we talk about here, if you stick around long enough, you'll see how a lot of it is leading to further harm. And so by coming out here and talking about it, we're hoping to lower the harms, lower the temperature, improve the world, like be the change, guys.
Right.
Happens.
Bark less, wag more, whatever little cliche thing you want to put on it, like call it that. Like more love, more freaking love.
Always about the love.
My commitment is to have better lighting and a better background next time. You just look so cute in your little corner with your little lit up tree behind you.
The only problem is
the glare. I know.
Yeah, like I have to like play, but I am like going to get more glasses soon, so hopefully I'll get some that are anti-glare.
The anti-glare.
Or I'm just have to keep playing with my camera or something.
I understand. Yeah, I understand.
Oh well.
Hey, I love you. It was so wonderful to see you. I love Andrew Berber says wag wag.
Wag wag.
Wag wag. Love and prosperity and joy and whatever to all. You know,
yes.
the holiday season, which is kind of screwy. That's probably what we should make our next show about is, you know, traversing this during the holiday season with families.
Yeah, right.
Take my trash to the curb. I have to have an alarm. I have to have an alarm to take my trash out because I forget. It didn't go out last week.
That's when you set the alarm, isn't it?
That's why I set the alarm. No, the alarm went off last week. I just didn't take it last week. So yeah, no, even the alarms don't help.
Yeah, no, I did that.
I would say it's a 50% improvement in the trash getting to the curb.
It'll get there. It'll get there.
All right. Love you all. Smooches.
Love y'all. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Well, we definitely should have